Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you.
Alaikum salam.
And that's not just any peace, because when we say assalamu alaikum, we mean may God's peace be with you, because there's only one kind of peace, and that's the peace that comes from our Creator, from the Muslim perspective and the Abrahamic perspective. For those of you who are secular humanists, may peace be with you. All peace is great peace. I can't believe that I'm here today with Reverend Blackman, Reverend Forbes, and the Reverend Barber. I'm just astounded. I'm here today to testify about the phenomenon of Islamophobia. Fear of Muslims and Islam is in many ways driving our nation's foreign policy, which is deeply embedded in war profiteering and unending war to the tune already of $7 trillion. That's $7 trillion that could have paved our roads, that could have paid for home health care workers, that could have paid for education, that could clean our environment, and that can help build the kind of education system that we need. So please do never divorce hatred and fear and Islamophobia from the money that we need back here at home. As challenging as our problems are in the international arena, there is no room for error. There is no room for fear, only courage. There is no room for hate. There's only room for reason and for real solutions. Instead of hatred and war, we must build a sharing planet bound up by the ties of cooperation and mutual respect, lest we continue in a downward spiral in a race to plunder and exploit our planet until we use it up and send it into the catastrophe of the fire next time. This year's presidential campaign has unleashed a frenzy of anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic rhetoric, with candidates competing to insult Islam and demonize Muslims. The presumptive nominee of the Republican Party has bandied about the idea of banning all Muslims from the United States. Elected officials in 10 states have enacted legislation to vilify Muslims and Islam through so-called anti-Sharia bans or anti-foreign law bans, unconstitutional measures that have even been introduced in Ohio as well in 2013 and currently before the House Judiciary Committee of Ohio. And I have to call out names. Representative Matt Lynch of Bay Branch Township, introduced in 2013, and House Representative Ron Young from Lake County. These sponsors of hate bills are egged on by groups such as Act for America, the American Public Policy Alliance, and the Center for Security Policy, headed by Frank Gaffney. I have to call these people out. They have shared in a bounty of fear money to the tune of at least $205 million spent on hate since 2008. And this is chronicled in our latest report called Countering Fear. In the white supremacist mindset, Muslims are collectively guilty for the acts of terrorism. And it's no wonder, because the vast majority of Muslims are a brown-skinned people, a people of color. So we are criminalized and collectively guilty along with our African-American brothers and sisters. 30% of Muslims in America are African American. They have more than paid their dues and proved their loyalty to this country. In the aftermath of the Paris and San Bernardino terrorist attacks, we have seen a surge, unprecedented surge in scapegoating, with more than 70 attacks on mosques. Legitimate national security concerns have been hyped up and distorted by agenda-driven politicians who have turned tragedy into the grist for the voter turnout mill. As refugees fleeing wars in Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Somalia, and North Africa are risking their lives to cross the castle ditch of Europe, of the Mediterranean, to reach safety, some in the U.S. have clamored that Lady Liberty should shut her golden door. We've let in less than 1,000 refugees from Syria, and there are 65 million people displaced from their homes, more than any time since World War II. after the director of the FBI, James Comey, made remarks on the challenges of screening refugees in the fall of 2015, members of Congress and more than 32 state governors across America irresponsibly and mercilessly ginned up fear against refugees who in many cases are fleeing conflicts which were generated in part by the failed U.S. policies. Meanwhile, perpetual fear has become fertile ground for white supremacist groups who rush to sow and reap the bitter fear of nativist hate. Groups like the KKK have been using the specter of Muslim refugees in their recruitment posters down in Alabama. And it's no mistake and no coincidence that that anti-Sharia, anti-Muslim bill, when you look at the states, it's coming out of the states of the Old South. This is the same hate in a new guise. Unfortunately, hate and Islamophobia has moved from the margins to the mainstream, and we must reverse this trend and put away the dangerous toys of war and these vicious games of hate. We must stand against the voices that would pit two of the world's great civilizations against each other, that of Islam and the West. Islam and the West are not destined to stand against each other, except for several periods of history where there has been strife. For the vast sweep of history, the civilizations of Islam and the West have worked together to produce a tremendous flourishing of science, art, and culture. Whether it is medicine, astronomy, philosophy, banking, mathematics, geometry, physics, architecture, social science, and art, there is hardly anything that we can touch in the West that does not have its roots in the Muslim world. Even the algorithms that pilot your cell phone are from the mathematician, yes, Muhammad ibn Musa, son of Musa, Moses al-Khwarizmi, who was part of the royal court in Baghdad, and his work is likely the source of algebra as well. One of the keys to dissolving hate is to replace hate with knowledge and replace darkness with light, and truth with the light of reason, with the light of truth and reason, with the salve of logic and pragmatic solutions. And I'm wrapping up here. To do this, we must get to know one another and learn from one another. And to do that, we must be in close proximity to each other and challenge hate up close and personal, not from the comfort of our own kind. We must go forth against hate and darkness with the torch of wisdom, knowledge, and light, not with a fanatic, unbending will, but with that of empathy, seeking first to understand and then to be understood. As oft quoted in Islam, God has told his people, "O mankind, we created you from a single soul, male and female, and made you into nations and tribes, so that you may come to know one another. Truly the most honored of you in God's sight is the greatest of you in piety, and God is all-knowing and all-aware." Thank you.
Stay right here.